The New York Times is writing about fictionalized skunks promoting rape culture. Seriously, somebody at the New York Times has too much time on their hands.
Coming to paperback and e-readers in 2021, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks on a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business in 2021 at online booksellers everywhere.
The New York Times states that it is all the news that's fit to print, and it also is given the distinction of being the unofficial newspaper of record here in the United States. And that distinction has really shown me that this whole society is in a real state of decline as related to this culture war. And it has also shown me that the New York Times itself is becoming a casualty of that culture war because one of their so called journalists in an op ed piece decided to write an article talking about how the fictional cartoon skunk Pepe Le Pew from Warner Brothers Looney Tunes was promoting rape culture. Now, this decision to run this op ed piece is a very troubling one for me because it shows me that the people at New York Times really don't understand what a good editor is supposed to do. And a good editor is supposed to make sure that, yes, people are allowed to post op ed pieces, but those op ed pieces should be something that is newsworthy and something that presents an opinion as related to facts on a social issue or a political issue. And this article talking about Pepe Le Pew, the fictionalized animated skunk promoting rape culture, does not fit into any sort of category as related to being discussing any social issue or any sort of political issue that any, as I see it, credible newspaper would want to go out here and run in their op-ed section, because this whole article reeks of somebody's feelings and does not present any sort of logical facts as related to presenting an argument on any sort of issue. And to give one of these, what people would call a social justice warrior, a platform in the so-called unofficial newspaper of record and the highestly ranked newspaper in all of the world, that really puts a tarnish on the brand of the New York Times, and that puts a tarnish on the reputation of the New York Times, and it also makes the paper less credible as related to presenting all the news that's fit to print. So when I look at this article, it practically compromises the entire mission of the New York Times, and it's one that, again, a good editor would have rejected because they would say, this argument makes absolutely no logical sense, and there's no reason for us to even publish this piece. Unfortunately, the New York Times did publish this ridiculous piece of, I can't even call it journalism. It's basically a blog in their newspaper, and many of these people, instead of looking at how this has tarnished the reputation of the New York Times and its credibility, are sitting here debating and arguing this ridiculous talking point. Now, your Pepe Le Pew in those old Looney Tunes shorts was a thirsty Frenchman who had a lot of lust in him. And this thirsty French skunk, he oftentimes went out here trying to find a attractive female skunk. Unfortunately, what happened in many cases is he ran into this unfortunate cat who wound up getting a white stripe painted on her back. And as he was going out here looking for this woman, female skunk, he oftentimes ran into this female cat. And what happened was, in many cases, as he was trying to get the attention of this woman, he was just acting like a thirsty guy. And when we have thirsty guys out here, they are just caught up in their feelings And the whole gag, which is a two-part gag, was that your Pepe Le Pew was so thirsty that he wasn't even giving in to his nature and understanding that he was a skunk and this was a cat. He was just caught up in his feelings about just seeing another animal that had a white stripe on the back just like him. That was one part of the gag. The other part of the gag was he just really stank and the woman wanted to get away from him because one, she wasn't a female skunk, and two, he was just a horny dude. So she was trying to get away from this guy because he stunk and he was just a thirsty guy who was really not her species, and that they were really making a commentary on how somebody just isn't attracted to someone, but this goes over the heads of many of what people call your social justice warriors, because your social justice warriors, many of these people, they don't have good critical thinking skills, they don't know how to use logic and reason, and many of them just have too much time on their hands, so they sit there trying to analyze a animated cartoon from 50 years ago, taking the content out of context and trying to apply their own observations regarding content made over 50 years ago, trying to make it frame their context, and practically failing at every point, because if these individuals had done research on Chuck Jones, the creator who made Pepe Le Pew, they would know that this does not promote any sort of sexual violence against women in any way, shape, or form. But because these individuals don't want to go out here and do research on animated history, they go out here writing articles based on their feelings, similar to a CNN piece I just read a couple of weeks ago, talking about how boys using the word simp is called bullying. Again, another piece coming from a writer who was writing from her emotions, not going out here doing research on the subject. And a good journalist, they're going to go out here and do the research, and they're going to do that research because they want to make an article that will go out here and present arguments that reinforce their talking points and persuade the reader to see the whole point of their piece and be able to, again, use objective facts to reinforce their points so that the reader can get a better understanding of the material. Now, a poor writer, what they will do is write on emotion, talking about how the character of Pepe Le Pew, again, a fictional character, is promoting a rape culture, a concept that was created in the 21st century. That just makes no logical sense, because your Pepe Le Pew was created back in the 20th century, and over the last 50 or 60 years that this cartoon has run, most men have not ever said that this character was the reason for them wanting to go out here and participate in sex crimes. And if this writer had done their research instead of writing on emotion and had read a book like I did, like Susan Brown Miller's Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape, they would understand that a rapist is motivated by their need for power, and they are motivated to this need for power because they want to go out here to hurt and humiliate someone through their act of sexual violence. That is what the feminist Susan Brown Miller stated in her book, Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape, back in the 1970s. And this is, again, one of the books that came from academia all those years ago, that if this writer had done their research and read this book, they would look at this whole concept of Pepe Le Pew promoting rape culture and realize that this whole argument makes no logical sense, because, again, what motivates a man to participate in sexual violence is that feeling of powerlessness over their life. And because they feel powerless and they want to take control, they go out here and look to participate in sexual violence against women. So that is what motivates a man to go out here and participate in sex crimes, not an animated cartoon that came out over 50 years ago, and it was running at the time that Susan Brown Miller was writing Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape. This Pepe Le Pew was running at the exact same time she wrote this book, and it was running back in the 1990s when I watched the classic One Life to Live story that featured the character Marty Saybrook as she overcame the trauma of being gang raped by your Todd Manning. Now, what I find interesting about this social justice warrior who wrote this, I can't even call it an article, it's just garbage, is that she can sit here and talk about how a fictionalized animated skunk from the 20th century is promoting so-called rape culture. But here in the 21st century, you have characters participating in sexual violence, but we have no outrage from these social justice warriors. And an example of this is your Wonder Woman in the film Wonder Woman 1984, which debuted on HBO Max in late December. Now, in Wonder Woman 1984, the Wonder Woman character goes out here and has sex with a man who is being possessed by the spirit of Steve Trevor, but she has sex with that man without that man ever making any sort of consent. Now, in addition to this Wonder Woman 84, we also recently had a movie coming to America come out on Amazon Prime, and in that film, the Prince Akeem character is taken against his will after being made to smoke this marijuana by Leslie Jones's character. So in both of these movies, we can see that there's a trend towards making it where men are being raped by women. And according to this whole writer's theory, there looks like there's a rape culture being started by Hollywood with your Wonder Woman 84 and your Coming to America. Both of these films are promoting a culture that tells women it's okay to go out here and sexually violate men against their will. However, there's no outrage about these violations of these men's right to consent. I mean, where is all of the outrage about these men who go out here and get sexually violated in films like your Wonder Woman 84 and your Coming to America? And where is the outrage about all of the white female teachers who go out here and participate in statutory rape with young teenage boys and preteen boys? That's the critical question I would love to ask this so-called journalist who clearly, again, did not do her research. She's sitting here talking about how one aspect of a fictional cartoon from 50 years ago was supposed to be promoting so-called rape culture, but meanwhile, we have an ongoing trend of women participating in rapes and sexual abuse of young boys, and a media promoting the whole idea of raping men in films, but we have no outrage. And that's what makes this whole controversy really reminds me of what I read in the Bible regarding the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because back then the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they would go out here and create these hypocritical double standards as related to issues. And these same people, because they were running on emotion, because they were upset about the power that Jesus had, they wanted to go out here and challenge Jesus, who oftentimes presented these people with not only logic and reason, but presented people with the truth regarding their hypocrisy. And that's one of the things that I understand about the Bible now, when Jesus said, about the bread of the Pharisees and to avoid it, because that bread is just not very good bread, because it does not really fill you with truth. It just fills you with a lot of lies, and it has you going out here following a false doctrine. And when I look at the doctrines presented in this so-called op-ed piece, it really shows me how lost America's culture really is. And it takes me back to that chapter of Matthew I was reading where Jesus said, "The blind lead the blind, and both fall into the ditch." And that's where your Warner Brothers, and it seems like a lot of Americans, are going by following the opinions of this individual who wrote this piece and has no real understanding of the world. Because in response to this so-called piece of journalism, I could just call it garbage, Warner Brothers has decided to cancel your Pepe Le Pew by not featuring him in their sequel to Space Jam, and they've decided not to go out here and show any new content featuring the Pepe Le Pew character. I don't know if they're going to cancel many of his older films, but any response like that just shows how the blind are leading the blind, and how these modern day Pharisees are leading our culture completely into the ditch, because anything that they disagree with needs to be canceled, when the big problem is they are some of the most ignorant people I have ever seen. I mean, clearly these people, they just run on their feelings, and they see the world only from their navel-gazing context, which is only a small portion of the world. And they don't understand history, they don't understand culture, they don't understand anything outside of their narrow view of the world. And these are not people we need to be going out here celebrating or supporting. And when these people form up into Twitter mobs, these are people we don't need to really listen to or regard, because these people are not presenting us an opinion based on fact with research to support it, like I have recently just did in this video, citing a source like Susan Brown Miller, a feminist from the 70s who wrote the book Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape. That is a credited source, which is considered one of the defining books on rape. And your Susan Brown Miller again says that, again, rape is an act of sexual violence and is done because men want power. And your Pepe Le Pew did not want power in any of those situations, and he was not promoting a culture of men participating in sexual violence. No, your Pepe Le Pew was just a comedy on your Frenchman who had a lot of lust in him but was looking for love. And sadly, because the person who wrote this doesn't understand the whole concept of research, they come out here based on feelings. And what's even sadder is we've got editorial at the New York Times who go out here and publish said individual without understanding that there's a consequence for promoting this type of bad journalism, and that is that further perpetuates and promotes the so-called cancel culture in our country and promotes it in our culture. And this cancel culture is very toxic to our society, because that cancel culture is very similar to what the Nazis did back in Nazi Germany, and it's very similar to what happened in Jesus's time. But Jesus was the only one who really dealt with it constructively, because when the Pharisees came to Jesus with the adulterous woman and told him that the policy was to stone her, Jesus, the only one there who was born without sin, he just stood there writing on the ground after he said, "He who is without sin cast the first stone." And that practically shamed all of those who wanted to murder this woman, because all of those people, they were born in sin. and they had already committed many heinous sins, because your Pharisees, these were people who like to say one thing but then go out here and do another, and then they like to change these standards whenever those standards hold them accountable. So your Pharisees, when they were exposed to be hypocrites and liars, and they were exposed to be phonies, that's what led to them all leaving when they went to stone this woman. And then as they were trying to stone this woman and all of them left, she looks up at Jesus, and then Jesus forgives her. And that's what we really need to do as related to these issues out here that these SJWs want to go out here and push. We need to understand that if the Son of God could go out here and forgive a adulteress who he did not even know, he could do that for that adulteress, then we need to forgive these minor infractions that are presented to us by these social justice warriors on social media as major things that are completely egregious. I mean, if the Son of God could go out here and forgive people who are out here have committed sins, then why can't you just let this minor infraction, what these social justice warriors bring out here as infractions, go? I mean, as I see it, nobody should be canceled because they have a difference of opinion or a difference of ideas, because when it comes down to it, this is the United States, and one of the pillars of this country was the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the freedom of to go out here and be able to live our lives and be able to participate in the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But your SJWs, what they want to do is limit everybody's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and they want to make everybody miserable in their company. And what they want to do is go out here and call themselves canceling anybody, because that makes them feel good by making everybody else miserable, because they practically hate their lives and they're looking for some reason every day to make people miserable. That's why these people spend almost all their day on Twitter or Facebook looking for some post that offends them, and then looking to go out here and cancel that individual because they had the audacity to actually go out here and be happy. That's what they're really angry about. They want to cancel that person's peace. They want to cancel that person's joy. And that's what cancel culture really is all about. It's about taking away people's joy, taking away people's peace, taking away people's happiness. And I make a lot of commentary on this in my new Esteem book that I'm getting ready to release later this year called Cancelification. And that book is where Esteem is about targeted by these cancel culture types. And these SJWs, they live all day on social media looking to start some sort of drama because they have nothing going on in their life. So this person, they decide, oh, I have nothing going on in my life, so I'll write this so-called op-ed piece about your Pepe Le Pew. But that just shows how pathetic they are, because anybody who is supposed to have writing skills, like myself, I'm not writing about your Pepe Le Pew. No, I'm out here creating my own characters and stories and creating my own intellectual property so that I can go out here and build my own brand like the SJS Direct imprint. That's what somebody who is at peace with themselves spiritually does. They go out here and create their own work. They don't go out here trying to tear down and destroy the works of others. Yes, I may criticize somebody's work, but I'm not going to try to cancel them, because I believe that the free marketplace will decide what product will go out here and sell. But what doesn't sell are these people in this culture war going out here and trying to cancel other products. That doesn't really help your products. It does not help your agenda, and it makes it look like you have no real credibility whatsoever, because instead of you presenting an argument based on facts, you come out here with emotion, talking about how fictionalized animated characters are promoting a 21st century concept, a 21st century concept that really has no credibility once you have done your research on the subject of rape and sexual violence. There is no culture that permeates throughout our society that promotes this, because if there was a culture to promote this, we would be seeing sex crimes being committed practically almost on every hour on the hour by regular common children. But that's not the case, because again, a culture is a way of life. But these people, who are a part of our academia, they just show us how dumb they are by promoting these kinds of concepts, because these kinds of concepts, again, they make no logical sense once you think critically about them. And when you think critically about the whole idea of talking about a fictionalized animated skunk promoting a so-called rape culture, it makes no logical sense. But these same people, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees before them, they sit there and they strain at a gnat, but then swallow a camel. They'll sit there and again talk about Pepe Le Pew promoting rape culture, but they have nothing to say about Wonder Woman raping a man, or the Leslie Jones character in Coming to America raping a man, nor do they have anything to say about a foreign cartoon where a character uses his long penis to go out here and be made for children. They have nothing to say about that subject matter, but they want to talk about a cartoon made by people 50 years ago and talk about it's promoting rape culture. Meanwhile, other acts that promote sexual violence against men are perfectly fine, and promoting a character that uses its genitals as a rope, that's perfectly fine for them. And again, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, these people strain at a gnat, they swallow a camel, and they show us how their bread is just dirty and filthy. And again, Jesus warned us about these kinds of people. He talked about, you don't want to take the bread of the Pharisees, because that bread is just corrupt and it's just filled with sin. And when I look at these so-called SJW woke types who sit there and talk about, oh, they want to cancel something, we really need to cancel them, because these hypocrites, they sit here looking to make other people miserable, and like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they want to give us large and heavy burdens to bear, but these people won't carry a single weight of those loads. These people, all they want to do is make other people miserable. They want to appear to be superior over people, and they want to go out here and talk about bullying and things like that. But as somebody who has been bullied, when I look at these people, I see the real bullies. I see the people who go out here and terrorize people. And instead of people pushing back, I see people in our culture trying to acquiesce these people. But I can tell you from experience being bullied in junior high school and high school, you cannot give in to these kinds of bullies, because when these bullies get an inch, they take a mile. And when they take a mile, they try to take control over your entire life. And you shouldn't let these people take control over your life and prevent you from being able to enjoy your life. I mean, life is too short to let some little pink-haired or blue-haired 20-something who just got out of school tell you how the world works. It's up to us older people, like my 47-year-old self, to let them know you're not the expert on anything. You don't even know how to wash your own ass out here, and you're sitting here trying to tell me about things that you learned in this school from this goofball professor. But in the real world, those people, it doesn't work that way. And I talked about that in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me, these people, they don't even understand how the world works, because when you try to, again, apply these ideas you learned in school in the real world, you're going to wind up hitting a wall. And these people, instead of them hitting a wall, we've got a bunch of enablers giving them a pass. But we need to let these people hit the wall and let them hit it hard, and let them understand that, your ideas make no logical sense because there is no facts to back them up. And you're sitting here, again, talking about rape culture as related to an animated cartoon, and there's no logical evidence to back that up when we look at the statistics. And when we really take a critical examination of those statistics, most of your so-called rapists, they come primarily from these single mother households, and they are these so-called, in many cases, enlightened males that your feminists went out here to create. So you're sitting here talking about rape culture. When I look at the real so-called rape culture, it comes from those so-called enlightened males. They're the ones more likely to participate in sexual violence. And from my own research on the man crisis, they are more likely to be sexual deviants than anybody else out here. So when I look at this whole cartoon, at them trying to cancel it, it shows me how messed up our culture is. And it's becoming more messed up because many people are not following what Albert Einstein said many years ago. And he said, all it takes is for evil to win, is for good people to do nothing. And sadly, we've got too many good people out here not wanting to do anything about the evil known as the social justice warrior who pushes this toxic cancel culture. Now, this video is not going to be monetized because your YouTube doesn't want to go out here and monetize videos that talk about serious issues like this because it does not fit their narrative. So in order for me to continue making videos, I'm asking everybody to donate to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App, or pick up one of my books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. Pick up one on Smashware's, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers this April, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door must take on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess in paperback and e-readers this April.